Welcome to the Social Workers radio talk show on WCDB Albany 90.9 FM with co-host Dr. Eric Hardiman and Alyssa Lotmore. Here at the Social Workers, we address issues important to our communities with social work students, alumni, and community partners as our guests.
As part of the University at Albany School of Social Welfare, we hope to take social work beyond the classroom and agency settings and directly to the public, because the public is the client. Catch us on air, online, and anytime.
Welcome back to WCDB Albany. My name is Eric Hardiman, and I'm here with Alyssa Lotmore. Welcome back, Alyssa.
Hey, Eric. It's great to be here as always.
We are in the virtual studio world actually right now, but we are hosting this show as always, our weekly show here on WCDB Albany, and it is called The Social Workers. We're excited to be here again on The Social Workers. Always a fun time, right, Alyssa?
It is. And I liked how you said we're kind of in the virtual studio today, but today's guest is going to be talking about how the library is helping to #keep Albany connected through their Wi-Fi expansion projects and other ways that they are making the city of Albany more digitally inclusive to its residents.
Which is ever so important in our society, being digitally inclusive, particularly after the pandemic. I mean, you and I could not even imagine having produced this show remotely a couple years ago, but now it's almost a regular thing. It's a possibility, but we're also acutely aware that not everybody has access. And so I'm excited to talk about some of these topics today.
Yeah. So today we are having Lex Bhagat on from the Friends and Foundation of the Albany Public Library, an organization which provides critical financial support to the Albany Public Library. And I should disclose, I am a board member, the vice president on the Friends and Foundation of the Albany Public Library. So I do work with Lex a little bit. But one of the reasons that I wanted to become involved was I really do love the library and all the things that they are doing to help the community. They even have social workers in the library to address to help patrons who come in and might have some difficulties or need help finding a job or need resources for housing because perhaps they're homeless. There's so many ways that the Albany Public Library is making an impact in the community. So what we're going to be talking about today, the Wi-Fi expansion, is just one other way that the library is making a big difference.
Absolutely.
So I'll bring in our guest. Again, we have Lex Bhagat, who is the director of the Friends and Foundation of the Albany Public Library, and also a current library student at UAlbany's College of Emergency Preparedness, Homeland Security, and Cybersecurity.
Oh my goodness, you said the whole thing.
I did. Lex is also on the Dean's Advisory Board for CEHC. So Lex, welcome to the Social Workers.
Thank you so much for having me, Alyssa, and thanks, Eric. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. We're glad to have you here. We've talked about the library and the Friends of the Public Library before on the show, but this is a real chance to get an update and to talk specifically about some of the digital inclusion and connection issues. But we're excited to have you here.
Well, I am excited to go deeper into digital inclusion with you. Make sure that I give you an update. I wish it was a further update than it was from the last time we were on, but I want to give you an update. So don't let me off without telling you one. So,
okay.
Well, before we get into the Wi-Fi expansion, let's start off with a broader overview of what is the Friends and Foundation of the Albany Public Library, also known as the FFAPL.
Well, it is. It's a merged organization. That's the first thing to say. And we merged in 2020. So we're figuring out what we are. And Alyssa, you as a board member, I want to know what you think it is as much as everyone, because it's becoming. I know what we were before pandemic as separate organizations. The Friends of APL was a membership organization that celebrated books and supported the Washington Ave branch, was around for over 70 years. And their most visible and enduring program are the Tuesday book talks that they've done every Tuesday at the Washington Ave auditorium for as long as anyone can remember. The Albany Public Library Foundation was founded in 1994 and is a philanthropic organization that supported the APL through grant writing and charitable donations, event sponsorships, and things like that. So they have two very different cultures. The Friends have a bottom-up organization that was a social group. The foundation is a top-down support organization operating behind the scenes. And we merged right before the pandemic and moved into virtual movements, virtual meetings, and didn't really have the kind of chance to let these cultures mix. And so that's what we're doing right now this year as we start meeting in person and doing what we do. We're really going to figure out who we will be in the future. It's been a long process of merging.
And I'm excited for that because I actually joined the board the month before everything went virtual. So I joined in the end of 2019. I think my first meeting was November or December. And then our next meeting was scheduled for early spring and it ended up being virtual. So I never really knew when the organizations were separate, only this virtual world where we were trying to merge. So I'm really excited to see all that can happen with the resources of both the Friends and the foundation now as one organization to see how we can really help make an impact with the library.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I mean, libraries, there's a long history of libraries in this country as being community centers and community hubs, but a lot of people don't always realize that. They sometimes think of the library just as a source of books and written materials, but I think my sense is that libraries, particularly like the Albany Public Library system, has really expanded its mission and kind of moving outwards into other community areas and, sort of becoming a library for the future rather than just a repository.
Right. I mean, libraries have been transforming for 30 years. And actually in the early years of the 21st century, that was one of the slogans of the ALA, the American Library Association, was libraries transform. And it was to help people across the country realize how libraries were becoming a new institution. Books and the acquisition of books, the cataloging of books, the retrieval of books is the traditional library function. It's not gone from public libraries, but what books are themselves have changed. As books have become electronic and have led into new genres and graphic novels and the growth of youth services. But so books have changed, information has changed, information needs of the public have changed, and libraries have changed along with all those. So if you were to look at some of the slogans of libraries transform, it's because banning books silences stories. So libraries stand up for against censorship. Because 5 million students can't access broadband at home. That is a really important mission of libraries and has been for 30 years and became more important in the pandemic. Libraries are the most important provider of free Wi-Fi for people who need it and crossing the digital divide. Because ebooks let you fit a world of literature in your pocket, libraries partner with ebook publishers so that people could borrow ebooks. You don't have to just buy ebooks, because who really wants to own an ebook? Let's be real. And I could go on, but if you check out Libraries Transform, there's a lot of slogans that sort of sum up what 21st librarianship is all about. And my favorite is just that access equals opportunity. And that's part of why libraries have proven their importance in the 21st century. They provide access for all.
And that ties into when you were still talking about access and providing internet service. The FFAPL just received a Schmidt Futures grant. And tell us a little bit about that, because that's a really big amount of money to expand the digital inclusion project that you already had started at the library with helping to expand Wi-Fi.
Sure. The Friends and Foundation received from the National Digital Inclusion Fund, funded by Schmidt Futures, a big grant, $133,000 to expand Wi-Fi. We are expanding APL Wi-Fi at Albany Housing. We're going to provide free Albany Public Library Wi-Fi at all Albany Housing campuses, indoors and out, all 10 campuses. We've got funding to support the project through December of 2023. And the Friends and Foundation is going to be looking for funding to continue that project at least through 2030 or until there is a free or low cost option available here. Right now, we live in an effective broadband monopoly. There are wireless plans as well, so there are multiple plans, but there's only one wired provider that serves homes. So it's a monopoly, which is the way a lot of markets in the U.S. are, for a lot of reasons that we could look at. So yeah, our project is going to be providing training, devices, and access to Albany public housing residents. So we're going to give out 100 devices to various groups in Albany housing. We have project partners who are vetting the recipients of those devices. So we're working with the Boys and Girls Club and Excelsior College to find young adults and higher ed learners who could use a device. We're working with LifePath to find seniors who need a device. And then we're partnering with all these groups and with the library to provide digital literacy training for the recipients of Wi-Fi and for any of the residents of Albany housing over the coming year. So
Boy,
that's that project. Yeah.
It's really incredible to hear, Lex. I mean, there's, you know, the purview of our show and sort of the domain that we live in is social work. And in social work, you know, some of the areas that we're interested in, obviously, or maybe not obviously, but we're interested in social justice, but we're also interested in environmental justice, in economic justice, in, you know, lots of equity. Access issues are super important in the social work realm. And just making sure that folks in society have access to the digital tools they need to be successful. So this is really relevant and it's really exciting to hear about. I have a quick question, just as an aside, as a, you know, as a researcher myself. Do you have, as you're rolling out these new programs and expanding access and equity issues, is there any research and evaluation attempt?
Sure. We would love some research. We're working with HSG. I don't know what they stand for. I can look it up, or one of you could look it up. But HSG Global is a data analytics firm in Albany. Ken Robin is our consultant there, and I'm sure a lot of people who listen to the social workers would know Ken Robin and Juliet from the Albany Promise. So they both work at HSG now. One aspect that we have is we're looking at senior isolation. We have that survey from HSG, and we actually are looking for a class at UAlbany that would want to help with the administration of our senior isolation survey before and after, because we were supposed to have a Vista who was going to administer the first round of it and then look for a class that might want to do the post project administration of that survey. But for personnel reasons, we don't have the Vista at all. And so that's one research thing, is this senior isolation survey. How does having a connected smart device impact the isolation of seniors? And so that's an existing survey that we have. In the higher ed outcomes, we're just tracking the data, but we're not involved in there's no research plan that we're affiliated with in the beginning. If there's researchers who would want to think about how the higher ed numbers could be put into it, into a research project, that's great. But there's definitely going to be raw numbers that we're tracking just for the grant impact, for the social impact, that could be used by a researcher later. And they're all anonymized. And and that's about it. Although there's also overlaps with education. So as a recipient of this grant, we're part of the New York Digital Innovation Cohort, which was, 5 grantees in the first round, and then there's 5 grantees in the second round. We all have like an active Discord, and we're part of the National Digital Inclusion Alliance listserv, which is really active. So we're looking at a lot of programs around digital literacy education for different groups. So if there were education researchers, we actually now have a lot of information available from the network, and that we could share with other researchers. And then we're going to be using this program called North Star. So if anybody wanted to look at the efficacy of North Star's digital literacy trainings, that's another research overlap.
Well, I think we should, we should maybe continue. Go ahead, sorry.
What did that address the question you had, or did I miss?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I just wanted to get a sense if that was an area you had been exploring, and it sounds like it is.
Mhm.
And also, let's continue the conversation outside of the show, because I think there may be some researchers and/or instructors and classroom teachers at UAlbany who may be interested in getting involved.
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, so I think this is a great opportunity.
Great. And then just while we're talking about this, I mean, I would love to, with you guys as social workers and from your field, just do a little bit of unpacking of what digital inclusion means, and a little bit of uh, critical analysis. I mean, there's a lot of cheerleading about digital inclusion is essential and important, but there's also a lot of digital economy cheerleading that and I think that here in Albany we're really lucky to have Virginia Eubanks,
Yeah.
thinkers like Virginia Eubanks who pull the rug out from under the uncritical cheerleading, so that we can actually make some real contributions to the field and the nation, and make sure that we're making meaningful contributions to what digital inclusion is, and not advancing, and we're not automating inequality.
Right.
So,
And that's
yeah.
what's so exciting about having someone like Virginia here, is that, it seems like organizations like yours and others in the Albany area, including Virginia's work, really have the ability to push this notion further into the future, and not just have it be a two-dimensional, uncritical, examination of it, but to really kind of look at the issue deeper and kind of figure out what equity and access really means.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm excited to hear that.
Great. Well, yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Lex.
No, you, Alyssa. Yeah, I'm hoping to talk about it a little bit with you guys. So yeah, tell me what you're.
No, I just wanted to hear a little bit more about, I know last week was Digital Inclusion Awareness Week, correct?
Yes, Digital Inclusion Week, across the country. Yeah.
And I just wanted to get a little bit more of a feel of what are people doing across the nation? How is the library part of this digital inclusion movement, and making sure that the advocacy is there? And I just wanted to know your take on, based on last week's Digital Inclusion Week, where the library is in that project and that promotion of moving forward.
Sure. Well, Digital Inclusion Week was a national day of awareness called by the National Digital Inclusion Alliance. And NDI, our project, the Albany Housing Authority Partnership, is a kind of a textbook example of a National Digital Inclusion Alliance type project, because they advocate for devices, access, and training. And, we're providing all three. And so, at Digital Inclusion Week, groups who are involved and affiliated with the NDIA were highlighting what they do. But Albany Public Library, like public libraries across the country, has been a leader in providing access, for decades. Libraries are the most important provider of free Wi-Fi for all, and the provider of high-speed internet in places where there are not high-speed internet. So it was nice for libraries to get the credit that they're due. The ALA, took a very forward, was very visible in the beginning of National Digital Inclusion Week to highlight what libraries have been doing all along. But yeah, that was the day, was for groups to come together and reach out to their local elected officials. What we did here in Albany was we started giving out the Digital Equity Coalition survey. There's a group called the Capital Digital Equity Coalition, which was formed by Capital Region BOCES, the Workforce Development Institute, the Albany Public Library, Can Code Communities, who I hope you guys know about. They do training programs in coding, and the United Way of the Greater Capital Region. So those 5 groups have been coming together all year to create a roadmap and convene a group of regional stakeholders to break down the silos and help us to create digital inclusion. And so I think we should just start by defining that word a little bit.
I was just going to say, there may be listeners, who have just tuned in to the social workers here on WCDB and not quite sure what we mean by digital inclusion. And so I guess as you define that for us, Lex, can you also talk about what maybe some of the potential myths and misconceptions out there in the larger public might be about digital inclusion?
Well, I got one misconception in mind. I don't know if I want to talk about it, but here's my quick. This is what I learned from NDIA. Digital inclusion is the opposite of the digital divide. And that's my handy one-line definition. And I really love that. The digital divide is a state of a state that's been created, since the 1990s. The broadband internet infrastructure, the fiber optic infrastructure we have, was created to connect defense research institutes and large universities. It's
Right.
built, there's an existing trunk, which Albany has a fortunate node. We're in between Boston and Rochester, which was an original trunk line, and close to Schenectady. So we were well placed in the beginning of the internet to have good fiber optic connections here. Which made us, let's count our privileges where we got them, right?
Sure.
But so the internet was built on this trunk, and then was built. Then later on in Web 2.0, it's built as a consumer kind of product. So some people are being marketed to, and other people are being connected, right? And then the distribution of broadband connection was also uneven based on people's ability to pay a monthly fee. So a lot of zip codes within cities and urban areas, a lot of rural areas do not have high-speed internet. So that's the digital divide as it exists. It also exists as an educational paradigm of training people for digital skills. And there's also the generational fact of that there are digital natives, digital immigrants, and traditionalists who there's far fewer what they call traditionalists since the pandemic. Traditionalists were people who wanted paper, wanted to print out, didn't want to interact via a digital device. And one could talk about the pandemic as the end of the traditionalists as far as information users, right? And so now we're all either digital natives or digital immigrants. So digital inclusion means getting rid of that digital divide between all these groups. And so there's a lot of ways that we can look at the impacts. That I'd love to look at the impacts with you guys as social workers, and that's with digital inclusion as a literacy issue, as resilience, as equity, as jobs, as a cost of living issue. And there's other aspects, but those are the sort of 5 that came up with me to think about talking about. So you tell me which one to start with.
I mean, there's a lot to choose from there. I guess let's start with jobs, because that's the economic picture is something, we're talking about rising inflation right now, and job creation being so important nationally. You piqued my interest with that, so I'm curious how that relates to digital inclusion.
Yeah, thinking about the pandemic as the end of traditional paper-based information, the whole job seeking, job application process has become all digital. So anybody who has got a traditional framework or is a digital immigrant to the way of seeking a job digitally needs to transition into a digital job seeking process, learn how to get their resume up on LinkedIn or share their resume through other electronic resume sharing platforms, how to do the job searching through Indeed and other job search platforms, or even through the New York State Department of Labor, which has also transitioned to basically electronic format. So libraries are a kind of safety net for people who are doing that. They'll help people to create their email address and get onto job seeking formats. We've got a job seeking team here at APL that does LinkedIn training, resume training. We still have the one-on-one job seeker workshops, and so jobs are that's one aspect of how things that had a traditional form pre-pandemic, and where the traditional versus digital creates a divide. Somebody is inevitably weaker if they're not familiar with how to do the application themselves digitally.
Yeah. So I'm so curious. I mean, I think this relates to job seeking, but also some of the other areas incorporated in digital inclusion. But I would think, and this is a new area for me to talk about, but I would think that awareness is really key. So in other words, folks that are looking for jobs, or that are unemployed or underemployed, looking for new work, they need to know about the library, need to know what's offered there and what their access points might be and how they can get involved. And I had no idea you had job seeking assistance, for example.
Yeah.
Other folks may not know that. So what are some of the challenges and successes too around awareness and increasing awareness?
Increase, I'm not sure, increasing awareness about these programs or about
Yeah,
the
making sure.
libraries working
So
programs, or
yeah,
Like
so
the
I'm just
services
curious.
offered.
Right.
Yeah.
How do folks find out about them? And, you know, unless someone walks into the door of the library and asks a question, how do you ensure that the awareness gap, if you will, that, you know, people that might need job seeking services or other digital services from the library or could benefit from them, how do they find out about them?
that was a great question, Eric, and you have hit the nail on the head. I mean, the library reaches people who walk in the door. It is one of the few institutions where there are people outside waiting to walk in the morning. So people come in with various needs and they speak to a reference librarian who's a trained professional who can help them figure out what is their question, what is it that they need, and can connect them to the large group of services that are available at the modern public library. And that's part of why libraries are here and why they're essential, because people literally do walk through the door. Someone doesn't need to be aware of their need before they come in. They can find out their need in the course of talking to a reference librarian. So
And
there
there's
are,
also
of course,
tabling too, right?
there's
Correct,
also
Lex?
tabling. Yeah, there's outreach events that happen throughout the year. The one-on-one job seeker services are advertised on the library calendar. And there's it's in the program guide, which goes out to different social service agencies, you know. So I mean, of course we do active outreach with other social service partners around here, and we have various weeks of promotion, but really I think you've hit the nail on the head though with the idea of someone walking in the door. That is why the library is here, and that is why the library is so important, because someone does walk through the door and doesn't know what they need when they come in.
Right,
always.
right.
And that's also, I think, the reason. I mean, the Albany Public Libraries are great because we have multiple branches in every different area of the city in all the different neighborhoods, and they're all on bus routes, I believe, all on CDTA routes, making
Yes.
it easily accessible to any Albany resident to get to the library. And that's one of the reasons I think that the library had added the social worker or type of caseworker to the library staff before, because there were so many people coming in of all different walks of life who weren't sure what they needed, whether it's job seeking information or how to find housing, food, shelter, whatever it is. And there was somebody that the library hired to address those needs and issues. So I think the library is doing a lot of different things to meet the needs of the patrons coming in, because you never know what they might need.
So the caseworker, is gone post-pandemic. So
Yes.
okay, yeah.
But it was still something that the library was doing to be actively involved and invested with the community.
And now we have a new the library has a new partnership with HADAS, because, we're thinking about what's the library in the 21st century, and the library is a lot of things. The library is an anchor, the library is a service provider, but every public library in America is also a homeless shelter.
Right.
And that's just a fact of life. And so APL has a great partnership now with HADAS, where Homeless and Travelers Aid sends someone in every day to check in on people and do provide interventions and resources where possible. And that's a great program that we could talk about in the future. And then also to find out more about what's the future of the caseworker, because it was a really necessary program, and I hope it comes back. So.
Yeah,
I hope we can edit that out.
No, I don't think we should, because that's something that it shows what the library is doing. And when there's a need, when that person has left that position, there's now new partnerships where there's other types of resources. And that's one of the things that I think is great about the library, is they're always being innovative, and how can we partner? How can we bring someone in? How can we meet the needs of the individuals of the community? And that's exactly what you guys are doing.
And that, Lex, that partnership that is embedded in what you just said, that idea of partnering with HADAS or partnering with other organizations and other entities around the Capital District, is so important. And it's part of what I think makes the capital region such a strong, vibrant area in which to live and in which to build community. But
Yeah.
and even the University at Albany, we take very seriously the idea of community engagement and of not just being a university where students come and receive an education, but also being deeply connected into the community with different organizations and different entities, both commercial and otherwise, that can help the community. So that partnership, it sounds like, and I want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like those organizational partnerships are really key to the library.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, and that's what kind of what the ALA refers to as the library as an anchor. The library is open every day. It's got their staff. A lot of social service organizations are understaffed or don't have so many regular public hours, whereas the library is always here for the public to come in, and so it becomes a real world anchor for agencies to connect with the public. And that's a really important thing that libraries do in Albany and across the country. But here in Albany, we have some great partnerships, and part of it, I think, owes itself to people like Juliet at HSG and the Albany Promise, which I don't know the connection between Albany Promise and Albany, but I know that there was some
a long-standing connection. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd love to find out more about that. But so the Digital Equity Coalition hopes to be a collective impact project. We're hoping that the United Way can create some shared goals for everybody and shared destinations and a roadmap that we can all work together on. And the history of collective impact here, any city where there's been a collective impact model, all of the nonprofits are stronger, all the social service agencies are stronger,
right,
because of that idea of working towards a shared goal. Like, I mean, there's only so much money you can throw at a problem, but when we all work together, then the effects are compounded. It's just synergy. So.
Well, I think you just mentioned a lot of different ways that the library is making an impact through partnerships with Haddis, through the Wi-Fi expansion, and that's partnership with the Albany Housing Authority, to all the other services that you guys offer. What are some other, for those who don't know what's available at the library, what are a few other things that why should we love our libraries? What are some other things that you guys offer? I know I've gotten fishing poles before for my daughter and I. So what are some other ways that the library is of making a difference? There's so many, I know you can't even
there are
think of
so
them.
many. I also was going to talk about FFAPL, but I got.
Well, that is true. How is the FFAPL? Because you guys provide program funding for the library, and I should note that the FFAPL provides that critical funding, and Lex, you can add on, but the tax dollars only cover so much in the library budget. And that's where the FFAPL comes in to step in to provide some of the critical funding so programs can continue through, so other types of, projects and ways that the community can be more involved in the library. It allows those things to happen. So let's, talk a little bit about how the FFAPL and what are some things that we're offering that make the library able to have some of those really cool programs and events and things.
Great. Well, given the way you introduced it, I'm going to give me 1 second. So the library is in our neighborhood to provide for the information needs of everybody. That includes students who are working on school projects. That includes seniors who are just having lifelong learning. That includes providing program space for any community group that wants to have meetings or wants to get together for a class. There's a knitting circle that meets every week at Delaware. There's also the Delaware Community Farmers Market that meets at Delaware. There's concerts for the public in the Helderberg neighborhood in the backyard of Bach, which is really great for people who don't want to be social indoors yet and want an outdoor social space. They've really embraced that. The library provides for whatever people need. The Arbor Hill collection has Afrocentric art exhibitions and musical concert programs for people in that neighborhood who want to see African art celebrated. All the libraries in Albany, thanks to FFAPL, have been celebrating our own homegrown Black artists through a project last year called Branching Out, which supported local Albany Black artists have concerts right in front of each neighborhood branch. That was done last year to celebrate the reopening of the branches. And so I'm just trying to establish what the library does and what
Yeah.
the foundation does. The library is provides for necessities, information necessities, and provides a commons, a common public space, a neighborhood square that has air conditioning and heat, which is great in a 4-season place. The FFAPL supports the library, right? So the tax dollars pay for the books, pay for the staff, pay for the heat, pay for those buildings, and we pay for the Friends and Foundation support non-essential things and frosting and innovation. So we support Albany Made creativity. Before this digital inclusion grant, the biggest program that we consistently funded was Art at APL. And that's a visual art program that's at the Pine Hills branch. It brings in local artists and national artists. It's now curated by the Opalka Gallery. It used to be curated by a collective of regional art professionals, but there's a show of first-rate art that's hung at the Pine Hills branch every year. It gives students, neighbors, citizens, art lovers a chance to interact with contemporary art. They meet the artists there at the opening. They have the benefits of having art in the background as they read and have their meetings there. And so that was our biggest program that we funded, and that is fully funded by the Albany Public Library Foundation. Our other major program is what we call our internal grants or our innovation grants. And these are small grants to library staff. They're just $500 grants for a program that someone is thinking about. And it gives the librarian a chance to either respond to an immediate need in their neighborhood or to test out a program that they think the public might like, but it's risky. It's too risky to be funded by the taxpayer supported budget. And there's a lot of successful programs there that have become regular library programs. One of them is from the Job Seekers Services Program. This one-on-one sessions. That's with a job consultant named Marsha Lazarus. So we pay. Marsha's a professional. We pay her. I could look it up, but we pay her, a professional rate to spend an hour with one person. That is not something that could be justified by the taxpayer budget at first. So that was funded for 3 years from the Friends and Foundation's innovation grant. And after 3 years and after the pandemic, it proved so successful. I mean, there was just so much demand for it that's now a regular program of the Job Seeker Services Program. Not everybody gets to have an appointment. It serves very few people, but even just somebody trying to get an appointment and getting on the waiting list becomes a way for them to find out about other job seeker services and get into the sort of pipeline for other job seeker programs. There was another program we had that was on its way to becoming a regular program. That was called Teen Chef, and that was at Delaware. That program ended during the pandemic when all the branches closed to the public. But Teen Chef was a once a week cooking class at the Delaware branch for 12 to 17-year-olds. And it was the youth services librarian had the feeling that a lot of the teenagers who were coming to different afternoon programs that were about books were really coming for snacks. And she's like, you know what? These kids need snacks at 3:00. I got a group of neighborhood kids that need snacks, and we should be giving them healthier snacks because, we're just giving potato chips, for ease of snacking at these book programs, so let's buy some ingredients and make some healthy snacks with kids. And it was hugely popular, and kids started coming from other neighborhoods, and that was going to grow into a regular program. And we started looking at what were some other partnerships we could do for addressing that 3:00 snack gap and helping people to have greater health literacy, helping young people have greater health literacy and build their skills. And I can go on, but I'll just mention that is that, what's at root are the various definitions of literacy. And that's why the library is so relevant. And that's where things connect to digital inclusion, that's about digital literacy. These are just all the ways that literacy has transformed in the 21st century. For how do we how do we make sense of what is out there? How do we read and comprehend and make good choices in an era of information overload? In
Yeah.
America, the most marketed to country on earth and in human history, how do we make sense of all the information and messages that are out there? So
Well, Lex, you've done such a good job just sort of, even just identifying some of these topics and some of these areas that people should be thinking about and that we can all think about. I go back to the word transformation that you use, that, libraries have been in transformation for 30 plus years, and that the Albany Public Library system, and certainly your work with the FFAPL, is just really transformative and is really, shooting the public library here into the future, and it's exciting to hear.
thank you. Great.
It is. And I know you just mentioned so many great things that the FFAPL is doing for the library. And you just had your annual gala, which is our Literary Legends Gala, which is a
Woohoo!
huge fundraiser, very successful.
Yeah.
We had someone from UAlbany also recognized as a new literary legend, someone from our English department, I believe. And that was a major fundraiser. But
Yes.
what are other ways that individuals who are listening to this and saying, we love what the FFAPL is doing for the library, we love these programs, we want to be able to help in some way. What are ways that individuals can support the FFAPL?
Great. Well, we are a fundraising organization. We raise money for the for the Albany Public Library. So the most important way to support is to donate. And I won't hide that. You go right on our webpage, ffapl.org. There's a donate button. But we do grant writing. We have volunteer projects. We run a book sale on Tuesdays every Tuesday in the warm months at the Delaware Farmers Market. We're always looking for volunteers for the book sale. We also look for people who want to work on a professional level project. They could come in for 4 weeks to 6 weeks. If there's researchers here who want to think about a research project that overlaps, we can talk about that. We also provide internships for people who have skills that they can share. It can be filing, it can be just social, so being social and hanging out and doing a mailing, coming in one day and helping to do a mailing. We do several mailings a year that we stuff and mail ourselves. And then I have 2 special ways to throw out there. Any questions about those little ways? Anything I should add?
No,
Those sound great. Thank you.
Good. So the 2 special ways are, one, people should remember that next year is going to be the 100th anniversary of the Albany Public Library. And so I just want to make sure everybody knows to tell all their friends when we start the centennial celebrations in the spring. Tell everybody, stand up and tell everybody why you love your library, and make sure everybody in this whole city celebrates this jewel that we have and this anchor that makes our city a great place. So that's the first thing. And come to the Centennial Gala if you're a gala type person, but you don't have to come. There's gonna be a lot of celebrations all year long. And so that's the first thing. And 2, it is lawn sign season out there in Albany. I don't know if you know, but Albany loves elections and politics and lawn signs. We seem to export politicians to the rest of the state even. So we really take this whole lawn sign thing seriously. And so the Friends and Foundation have decided to join into the cacophony of lawn signs. So we have a lawn sign for people to just share their love for their library on their lawn this election season.
I have one on my lawn.
Alyssa has one. And if you want to get one, just go to ffapl.org/keep Albany connected. And that is a page that we regularly update. It has the latest update with what's going on with the Wi-Fi project and all the Keep Albany Connected projects. And right now, it also will have a button for you to buy a lawn sign.
And we can't say prices on the radio since it does air on WCDB, but it is a small donation for an awesome lawn sign.
And you can pick it up at your local branch, or we'll bring it to your house so you can put it right on your lawn.
Oh, that's great. Thanks, Lex.
I do have one on my lawn, and I have gotten a few questions of what is this? Keep Albany Connected. So it's doing its job of helping people to find out a little bit more about the FFAPL and what the library is doing, especially the Wi-Fi expansion campaign. So I do love my sign on my lawn.
So if you've just tuned in, you're listening to the Social Workers live radio talk show on WCDB Albany. I'm Eric Hardiman, and I've been here with Alyssa Lotmore, my regular co-host, and we've been talking with Lex Bhagat from the Albany Public Library, the FFAPL. And it's been a really great conversation, Lex. Is there anything else you want to share with listeners before we close out here?
Maybe
I'm
just
on
that
the-
you're going to be graduating soon, correct? From
Yeah.
UAlbany. You're going to be a UAlbany grad.
Well, let's talk about that bridge when we get to it. So, I will just leave you with another Libraries Transform tagline, and that is that free Wi-Fi should not require a receipt. And just remember that
Nice.
libraries are the most important provider of free Wi-Fi to people across this country.
Well, it's a good way to end it. Thanks for being our guest today. It's always great to talk with you, Lex. And I hope folks have enjoyed learning more about the FFAPL and the Albany Public Library in general.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to WCDB Albany. Stick around for more music and community engagement information. And we'll be back again with the Social Workers with another episode soon.